How are we doing, everyone? How are we doing anyway? We've got another transfer video for you today on 67 Hail Hail, and it comes with some good news and some bad stuff. We've got a 2-video Friday for you today. How about that? Later on, we will get the opportunity to speak to an unnamed Celtic player. We'll bring you that sometime later this evening, basically whenever Celtic send us the clip for it afterwards. But for now, we're talking transfers. Stephen McGowan, the Daily Mail Scottish chief sports writer, I think that's his job title, had an interesting update that went out, I think, early on Friday morning. It concerns Celtic and it concerns Celtic's transfer business. There was lots to get through, so we're going to do it. The main thing to take away from it is that, according to McGowan, Celtic are back in for Ben Davies. Now, if you maybe aren't a long-term Celtic supporter, maybe you're one of our new Aussie fans who's found us in the last month or so. Basically, Ben Davies was another complete disaster Celtic had in a long line of them last season. He was a player who was playing for Preston North End down in the English Second Division Championship, and he was out of contract at the end of the season that's just passed. As a result, Celtic could sign him on a pre-contract deal in January, and we endeavoured to do that right until Liverpool came in and signed him. Now, they didn't wait about until the end of the season. Their need was urgent, or so they thought, and they had the novel idea of paying money for him. Think about that, Celtic. They paid £2 million to take him from Preston to Liverpool, the Championship to the Champions League. It was a bitter pill to swallow for Celtic fans who were already imagining Davies playing for us this season. But he still might. The story is that, probably not really surprisingly, he hasn't featured for Liverpool. He hasn't featured at all for Jurgen Klopp's side. 0 minutes. He's had 21 possible games he could have played in. He has not entered the pitch in any of them, not even for a second. He's only been on the bench in 8 of those 21 games for Liverpool. So it's probably not a surprise that he is looking to play football this season. And maybe Celtic could just sign him and we could just pretend the last 6 months didn't happen. Yes, please. Davies will certainly hope so, because despite playing 0 minutes for Liverpool, his chances are somehow going to become even harder next season. Liverpool have signed Ibrahima Konate, and they've also got former Celtic man Virgil van Dijk coming back from injury at some stage in the future. So it's not possible for him to play less, but he's not going to have any more chance next season. So it seems like Celtic could be a possible destination for Ben Davies. Now, Stephen McGowan says that Liverpool would much rather sell Davies for a profit on the £2 million that they paid for him in January. The likes of Bournemouth in the English Championship and a whole host of other English clubs have been linked with a move for Ben Davies, but crucially, Celtic are interested too. Postecoglou is, quote, desperate to get in a centre-back ahead of our big Champions League first leg against FC Midtjylland on July the 20th. And everyone, when is the deadline for potential signings? Come on, I've told you this a fair bit over the last few days. Alright, it's Thursday the 15th at 11 p.m, but also we get until the night before the game. That's Monday the 19th, again at 11 p.m, to register 2 additional players. So that's the deadlines for Celtic. The report also mentions Carl Starfelt, who we've spoken about a lot on the channel, and Cameron Carter-Vickers, a name that seems to be growing arms and legs. Now, we've only really mentioned him in passing so far in this video. He's the American international who's been on Spurs books for ages. He spent last season on loan at Bournemouth. He spent, I think, the last 5 or 6 seasons on loan at various sides. Clearly isn't going to make the breakthrough at Spurs, but is still good enough to be a full American international. So he is one, as I say, that has grown. Another name mentioned by Stephen McGowan away from the centre-back area is winger Kyle Edwards, who was recently released by West Brom. But the bad news that I hinted at the start of this video is, again, according to McGowan, an interest in Mario Vuskovic appears to have cooled. He was the Croatian young defender, Hajduk split. Remember the centre-back that liked to run up the right wing and take shots and hit free kicks into the back of the net. Seems like that one may not be a goer anymore. Now, there's no further insight added by McGowan as to why that deal appears to be off, but it seems like we may well have turned attention to other players, namely Ben Davies and Carl Starfelt as well. If we brought in Starfelt and Ben Davies, then I don't think we could really argue with that. I think both of them, from what I've heard, seem like pretty steady options. Yes, we would have said that about Shane Duffy last season as well, so I think it is important to remember that every single signing is a risk, but I think these two seem like pretty stable options. The Ben Davies deal is one I'd like to see Celtic do. Of course, I would much rather see Celtic sign him permanently, but I just wonder, with so much work needing done to the squad this summer and the fact we don't have an endless pot of money, I wonder if loans will be a necessary evil for Celtic this summer. I think as long as we've not got a team with 5 or 6 loans in it, as long as it's maybe only 2 or 3, I think the loan market can still work for us. If Liverpool are looking to make a profit on Ben Davies, I think you're probably going to find a lower half English Premier League club willing to pay 6, 7, 8 million pounds for Ben Davies, not even thinking about it. That's just pocket change to them. 6, 7, 8 million to us is a pretty big outlay even in 2021. So I think that's something we have to bear in mind. I still think Ben Davies would probably rather play in the English Premier League as well than up here, especially if he's tasted it, albeit on the bench with Liverpool. But it's intriguing to hear that Celtic are being linked with centre-backs, and it seems like that is the number one priority at the moment for Postecoglou. Well, perhaps, number 1 and 2 along with right-back as well. And a winger. I suppose a centre-mid and a left-back as well. Probably do a new keeper as well. You get the picture. There's a lot needing done, but I think centre-back is the big one. Remember Koa Takura? That was another name that was mentioned probably barely a fortnight ago. He was the Japanese defender on Man City's books, had spent last season on loan with Groningen in the Dutch Eredivisie. That one seems to have gone quiet as well, so there's a lot of players here being mentioned as potential signings for Celtic. That's all well and good. I think I've been impressed by the look of a lot of them, but we need to get at least one over the line going into this Michelin tie. I think possibly Starfelt is the most likely. I just get the impression, having spoke to a few people, obviously the Swedish journalist we had on earlier in the week, that this is one that could be done relatively soon, and perhaps he's the one that could come in ahead of that Michelin tie, possibly partnering Christopher Ajer at centre-back. Maybe Ajer then moves on after the Michelin tie and we bring in Ben Davies or Cameron Carter-Vickers or Koa Takura if he's still linked, or maybe even resurrect a deal for Mario Vuskovic. That's how I see it playing out for Celtic, but it just seems like there's a lot up in the air at the moment. And with this Michelin tie getting closer and closer every single day, we really can't afford to stall on this. But other clubs will know that we're desperate, and that's not a great negotiating position to be in. The frustrating thing is for me that this has been so avoidable for Celtic. If we had not spent 2 months waiting on Eddie Howe and had got Postecoglou in nice and early, maybe even 2 or 3 weeks earlier, would have been 2 or 3 weeks earlier, more ahead of the curve at this stage. That's just something we're going to have to come to terms with. We're going to have to do our best now, but I feel like we're up against it.